this
Yeah.
future generation, I mean, they don't read the way that I grew up reading, and probably you've read your whole life. But you know, what interests me is that they're still avid learners. They have the same curiosity, right? But you see the boom of Audible, right, and audiobooks and podcasts and different sources of information, and how much has that, you know, accelerated or made learning accessible in your life or in those in your life?
Well, I think, wow, that's a great ability to knowledge has always been a challenge. Whether that was remote collections of, you know, big libraries where you had to travel some distance. I remember the first time I went to a library as a child. I mean, we had to go all the way into town. I lived out in the country, and it was a big deal when you got to go to the library and pick up books. And my mom really encouraged me to read, and I was a late bloomer to reading, but it was always fun to go to that center of knowledge and just see all this collection. But it was difficult to access. And I think one of the greatest breakthroughs with technology is opening up the accessibility to knowledge. In fact, the first time I met Paul was when he was tackling that very thing of digitizing content to make it accessible. And I think what you're doing with Soar is just another dimension of accessibility to knowledge, in using something that is very natural for us. It's our voice. It's endemic to who we are. Keyboards have always been painful. I mean, I had to learn to type older in life, and I've always wanted. I remember Steve Jobs produced a video years and years ago. I used to use as a professor. It was called Knowledge Navigator, and it was a hypothetical scene of a professor preparing a lecture, and he never touched a keyboard. It was all voice actuated. And I just always thought, man, when that arrives, when we can just talk, and there was some visual interactions as well, but the sooner we get away from this keyboard thing, the better for me.
Well, I love that. My wrists sometimes get, you know, sore from all the typing I do.
Yeah, yeah.
And you know, and I think back to the sci-fi movies, the futuristic, you know, portrayals of the future that I've watched growing up. You know, you always hear or see someone talking to a computer, whether it's Iron Man talking to Jarvis, or you've got Star Trek commanding a ship through voice. You know, they're not like harnessed to this tiny screen and straining their eyes and typing stuff. So voice-based learning is really a much more natural human experience when it comes to computing, right? And the thing that the other thing about traditional computing, traditional learning platforms, even if it's on a mobile device or a laptop, you know, opening that screen is a little bit like opening Pandora's box, because you don't know if you're about to get bombarded with notifications and distracting content, addicting content. And in many ways, we're kind of enslaved to that technology, right? They train us what to do next. And so they manipulate our habits and our patterns. So the thing that I think about as I think about what we're building on voice platform and what is coming with this wave of voice computing is humans are kind of emancipating ourselves from being enslaved to screens, and we're now in charge of our learning experience. The other thing about voice computing, and I'd love your thoughts on this, Eric, but it feels to me much more like a curiosity-based learning platform. You know, when we're kids, how do we learn? We just ask questions. We look around, we're curious, we just ask questions, you know? Exactly. And then at some point, people tell us, hey, you have to sit in seats, be quiet, and just watch a teacher, you know, talk and instruct and lecture for hours on end, and then you're gonna learn what we want you to learn. But curiosity-based learning is where humans thrive and naturally flourish. So the ability to ask a question and get an answer is really, I think, kind of rebirthing natural human learning.
Absolutely. I think the more we honor questions, the more we foster learning. I always used to look at my success as a professor. I'd measure it by the quality of the questions that they were asking. Not that I was asking them, but that they were asking me. And when class time when a student asked a really terrific question, those were the classes that we all remembered, because to me, it's how it's the portal into the mind, but it's also the mechanism by which you trigger learning and enhance learning. It's by honoring questions and helping people learn how to ask great questions, sharing questions with each other. Look at the questions I'm asking right now. I used to do this as a professor. I get with colleagues as much to learn about the questions that they were asking as to the answers, because those were the doors that opened up windows of knowledge. So I think the more we can honor questions and help people ask terrific questions, the more edifying it is for us personally, but for humanity as a whole as well.